At SimpleNet, you will get, at a very reasonable cost, an advertising space for your company, a website built for you by our team of professionals, or quite simply, a space to put your personal site online. The online gamers are not forgotten. We can offer fixed prices of bandwidth, as well as solutions for turnkey pre-configured game servers. Join us at www.simple-net.ca. Legends Action Figures, the place for Star Wars figures and collectibles in Canada. Visit our website and compare our prices. We've got customers from all around the world and the best service around. Come meet the staff at our Montreal store or visit our website at www.legendsactionfigures.com. All prices in Canadian dollars.
Hi, this is Lisa Stevens, president of the Star Wars Official Fan Club, and you're listening to Star Wars on Direct.
And welcome back to Star Wars on Direct, the voice of Star Wars fandom. And we're back on the air with Veronica Whitney-Robinson with us right now. How you doing, Veronica?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
We're very fine over here up in Canada. Yeah. Cold. As on hot, I would guess. We're going to do a little introduction on you. Veronica's been writing multiple novels, including Spectre of the Black Rose, which was a Ravenloft novel, The Halls of Stormweather, Forgotten Realms, Sands of the Souls, Forgotten Realms as well, Kindred of the Ebony Kingdom, which was a Vampire the Masquerade book, Gazetteer 4, which was another Ravenloft novel, Crimson Gold, which was a Forgotten Realms novel, and more recently the Star Wars Galaxies novel, The Ruins of Dantooine. Star Wars on Direct welcomes the fastest pen of the Star Wars universe, Veronica Whitney-Robinson.
Yeah, I like that title too.
Well, you sure earned it, because how long did it take you to write the Ruins of Dantooine?
After the outline was approved, about a month and a half while I was working full-time at a day job.
Oh, that's while working, wow. So that's like 2 full-time jobs. Okay.
It felt like 3, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to a few questions now.
Sure.
We'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, your hobbies, and how you became a writer.
Well, up until a couple of months ago, my primary occupation was a marine biologist with the Seattle Aquarium here in Washington State in the U.S., and I just semi-retired from that because the writing has become pretty much a full-time job at this point.
Okay.
But for 9 years, I spent quite a bit of time underwater blowing bubbles. A lot of people always comment that I've got a very pasty complexion. I said, well, I live in Seattle and work underwater, so there's not much I can do about it. And then I started writing. The first novel was Spectre of the Black Rose, the first thing I had published, and that was back in March of '99. And that's what started me down this dark and twisted road of writing.
And do you still like it? Is it your main career now, writing? Yes.
It is now, yeah, because it's like I said, had enough work lined up that I really was doing 2 full-time jobs there at the end, and I had to make a choice.
Okay.
That I was going to pick one and try to do it well, as opposed to trying to juggle 2 of them.
Okay, so now your hobby is marine biology.
Exactly, and it's quite a bit of fun. I was just doing some work with some colleagues of mine, and we have a lot of ongoing research projects that I am still assisting in, because I'd like to see them finished.
Okay. Well, that's great.
That's on the back burner. So.
Okay.
More time staring at computer screens.
Yeah, that too.
And pulling out my hair going, what do I do next?
So, can you tell us how you got chosen to write this particular Star Wars novel, Ruins of Dantooine?
Well, the opportunity came up this past summer. A colleague, a fellow writer, and I were approached to work on the project because they knew that we worked pretty well together and could work fairly quickly if we had to. Unfortunately, because of his work schedule, he wasn't able to accept the offer, and I was crazy enough to say, sure, I'll do it for you. And that began the process. I'd say this one was definitely, out of all the work I've had published so far, has been work in what's known as the shared world writing, which means that you don't own the creations.
Yeah.
You're working with a universe or galaxies that have already been established, so there's always a lot of rules and histories to brush up on.
A lot of research to do, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've loved Star Wars since the first movie, so I know a bit about it. I wasn't totally going in blind, but this one was interesting in working with the publisher and the fact that we were coordinating with LucasArts.
Okay.
So there was at times, for a very brief period, a lot of outside input, and after that they said, just run with it. Because the clock was definitely ticking.
Okay. Well, as we've seen in your book, which you dedicated to your mother, have you seen this movie called Star Wars? I think you're going to like it.
Yep, she was the one. I was visiting some relatives for a summer holiday, and she called me up to tell me about it. She's not a science fiction fan at all, but she knew, even when I was really young, how much I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently it led you in a good way.
I think so. I think she would agree it has now, too. And unfortunately, I forced her to see that movie at least 5 or 6, maybe even 7.
Did you actually had a chance to read some of the other Star Wars books from the extended universe?
In fact, the first one outside of the adaptations of the original movies, the episodes 4, 5, and 6, was, of course, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which, when it came out, I just grabbed it immediately. I was so excited that they were continuing adventures of all of that. And so I have read some of the expanded universe books as well.
And do you have read some recent expanded universe books?
I'd say the last one that Troy Denning did, I picked up, and a couple others. Unfortunately, I've noticed as my writing work increases, my fun reading time decreases. That's really kind of a shame.
Yeah. Sadly, the ways of life.
And up until a couple of months ago, everything I was reading was the Star Wars Guide to something.
Yes.
Vehicles, planets, droids.
In order to get up to date.
Yeah. For that, when you put in those touches that are the details that make a story a little bit more grounded in that universe, that you're using the right terminology, the right things.
Mm-hmm.
When it stands angry.
How much of a Star Wars fan were you before?
Version of a droid. That doesn't exist, Do that.
Well, you just invent new ones, that's all.
Yeah, that's true. You have a little bit of leeway.
That's right.
But then you've got, some of the game folks going with the Star Wars Galaxy game going, you can't do that. We can't do that in the game yet.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a bit of juggling.
Okay.
Must have been a ton and tons of hours of fun to write that novel.
Weren't tons of hours to do it. But it was fun.
Well, how much of a Star Wars fan were you before writing the Star Wars novel? Would you say you're a bigger fan now that you actually done all the research and all the work and everything?
I don't think it's changed, because I have to admit that what to me is the first movie, but Episode 4, when that came out, The New Hope, I literally did go see it about 11 times, and I just was
blown out.
To me, I'd grown up with reruns of Star Trek and things like that, so the special effects were, for that time, that was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
The storyline, I thought, was great. I remember I was 12 when it came out, and when Luke gets pulled in the trash compactor, when he gets pulled under by the creature, and it took, just a beat longer for him to come up than I thought he should have. It was interesting. I remember looking at my mother saying, they can't kill the hero in the middle of the movie, can they? And I liked, that movie was, it pretty much caught me. I stood in line for the second one. I stood in line for the third one, Return of the Jedi, when those came out, so.
Now that you know George Lucas's style of making movies, do you believe he could have killed the hero in the middle of the movie?
Well, now I see no, and I have to admit I admire him for doing the first 3 movies. To me, now those are quite a challenge. I actually just only recently saw the Attack of the Clones, because the fans going into it, they know what's going to happen, so he has this challenge of still making the story exciting and interesting, even though we know the road, what's the fate that's going to befall all these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's been many reviews for Ruins of Dantooine, and they're very divided. Some are positive, some are very negative. Are you the kind of author that read the reviews and try to get better after that, or?
I think when I did the first book, Spectre, I followed reviews a lot more closely than I do now. I don't think anyone is going to write something that everyone is going to think is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what you're trying to do, it's going to be a really frustrating job. I try to look at the writing as what I'm doing is a story that, for the most part, aside from some editorial input here and there, is the story I want to tell. And I'm writing it first for me, and I hope I'm doing justice to the genre,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not aiming it for specific people because I think that's a fruitless task. You're not going to make everybody happy.
Yeah,
That's it.
And you really shouldn't. I mean, it's some people, I understand some people are not going to like it, and some people are going to love it. And that's just how it works out.
yeah.
Which dilemma we can actually call the killing Chewbacca syndrome.
Okay.
What's the feeling of having written a chapter in the saga as big as the Star Wars saga?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that question?
Yeah.
How do you feel about writing a book in the a chapter of the saga, as a matter of fact, for Star Wars?
Yeah, I was. That was one of the reasons why I accepted the job. It was, for me, very exciting to at least even in a small degree, because again, this is based off of a game, so there is some question as to, well, it is part of the expanded universe, but is it quote unquote real Star Wars history, a real story? That's up for debate, but I certainly liked getting to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I said for me, the first movie made such an impact, and it's so sort of nice to come full circle and as a pseudo-adult be a little bit more of a part of that than just an observer.
Yeah.
So for me, that was very exciting.
There you go. You've actually answered that question a little bit earlier. You only had a month to write Runes, from signing the contract to giving the final manuscript. Can you give us a chronology of the events and short deadlines surrounding that endeavor?
Well, let's see. Like I said, I think it was at the end of July that my colleague and I were approached about this, and there was some discussion for a while in terms of what was going to be the timeline, what outside inputs were going to be included in the book in terms of who did we have to work with, and what elements of a story that we wanted to write would be ours and what things we would have to include for someone else. And it was probably, I want to say now, at the end of August that I actually got the go-ahead to write it, and was given about 10 days to turn over an outline.
Oh.
So mid-September, that went both to editors at Del Rey and then to Hayden over at Star Wars Galaxies, and also over to LucasArts. So there were three different groups anyways, that looked at it, each one having different questions or wanting different elements included. Then it came back to me to revise and go back out to all of them to see if they were all right with it. And it really was about, I want to say the beginning of October that I got the final clear go-ahead from everybody, and pretty much needed to have things in by the end of October.
Oof, that is short.
That was still to leave us a little bit of time to do a possible second draft and make revisions as needed. Simply because they had to have it physically at the publisher by, I believe, the end of November to get those books in print so it could be out by the December 30th publication date.
Very fast indeed.
It was a race.
The professional
I recall just getting the outline approved, and the book was already listed on Amazon with like the December 30th date, and I went, oh, don't you know when it's due?
No pressure.
That's it.
You just hear that clock in the background, kind of loudly.
The professional profile and physical description of your main character, Deuce Miss Flyer, is very much like yourself. Did you actually model her after yourself?
I did a little bit, especially with the deadline looming so close. To me, it was the most comfortable to write about someone that I knew a little bit. And especially at that point, one of the things I had to take into consideration in writing the book is I was limited to the way the universe was set up in the game. And basically, other than the Empire, which is obviously an incredible threat, the only other things that the players of the game come across, and they come across on a regular basis, at that point, were fighting animals.
Mm-hmm.
So to make the main character somebody who knew something about animals or dealt with animals was also sort of a logical choice. Because like I said, at that point, that was the main thing. There were no player vehicles, so basically all the characters in the game, you're either running on foot or you hop a shuttle to go to another planet. But at that point, that's all you were doing was your character was running around. And so that, to me, like I said, that made the most sense to have that character involved with that profession.
Great.
Good. There were a lot of Galaxies references, cameos, location, and ambience in Ruins of Dantooine, which was great for players. But for the benefit of the non-players, can you tell us some of them that we've missed?
Some of the things about the game?
Yeah, some of the locations or...
Well, actually, in the book I didn't cover, there's still several really neat places in the game to play. The planet of Dathomir is extremely popular right now. It's got a lot of great threats and things for people to fight, the Night Sisters, Rankers, things like that. It's a very popular place. Also, Endor, people can interact with the Ewoks, Yavin 4. There were several planets that I just either didn't have the time or it didn't sort of logically make sense to cover them all. I believe there's 10 planets in the game altogether that you can play on. And there was just no way to fit them all into the story and have the story make at least a certain amount of sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of planet hopping already.
Yes, and again, some of that was also input just again from gaming department, things like that, to give it the feel of the game.
Yeah.
That is what players do. You are, in fact, some of the quests that a player of Star Wars Galaxies might undertake would involve them going to 3, 4, possibly 5 different planets before it's all finished. So that is a big part of the game.
Which makes it fun.
Yeah.
It was refreshing to see the adventures of original and new characters in the classic era. But concerning the use of already established characters from the movies and other games, were there any restrictions at all?
Basically, they were just supposed to be cameos, and they were only supposed to be, secondary players. And that this really was to introduce the new characters. And in fact, at this point, Hayden and his team of developers are working on incorporating those characters into the game. So Dusk and Finn will become NPCs in the Star Wars Galaxy game.
That's great.
Yeah. And in fact, part of the mission that they were on will continue in the game. Again, that was done intentionally.
Yeah, that's good.
That was one of our later questions.
The Star Wars Galaxy game actually came out in June. Did you have access to the game before that during the beta testing? And how much time did you spend in the game?
Well, about the same time my outline was being approved, I was given the game and an account to go in and use that as reference. So my game playing occurred at the same time that I was writing.
Okay.
And what I ended up having to do was involve some people who were already playing the game. I made a few friends and got them to help me out so I could get to some of the places I needed to for the book, simply because my character in the game was a very much a newbie and was getting killed left and right. I couldn't walk 10 feet without something killing me, so I needed some help. And in fact, in the book at the back, there is a thank you, an acknowledgement to one of the players who was a very big help to me in doing some of my research.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure that if you ever need some help, if you ever decide to go back into the game, you can look for Wookiee Mart, one of our friends here at Star Wars on Direct.
Our Star Wars Galaxy panelist.
That's right.
Okay.
Were there situations and events you encountered that inspired you during that research, the playing?
I think because when I started the game was more, again, to just help me ground the novel, to make it feel more like a part of the game. I had the story fairly well plotted out, other than the fact that the game offered a lot of inspiration in terms of animal threats to throw into the novel and things like that.
The first scene of the novel in the gladiator arena, was there something about this being in the game?
Yes, that was actually a player-sponsored event that had happened, and it was something Hayden was very pleased about using to include that in there. And at that point, there were not many player-sponsored events yet. That's becoming, as I understand it, more popular within the game now for people to do these things. But at that time, that was kind of were playing the game realized that the developers were watching what they were doing and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of started a trend by putting that in your book. As a reward for writing the book in such a short time, do you still have the account and do you still go play the game nowadays?
I do. I get to keep that, and I do pop on every now and then and play a little bit.
Oh.
Because unfortunately, I think I've hooked my husband as well.
Oh. Which now reduce your time on the computer.
It does. In fact, I tried to get him involved at the beginning to also help me. So if I was writing, I'd ask him to go to a certain place and tell me what some of the descriptions, what it looked like, things like that. And I'd find him going off doing something else because he'd just get involved. And I go, that's not helping me. And he goes, wait, let me just kill this one thing and I'll be right there.
Please, honey, I want to destroy that ADST now.
Exactly. Just need to take out that layer, and I'll be right there.
That's it. Or as something happened to one of our friends, if your husband decided to be a Wookiee, at one point in particular, you could actually get stuck in an elevator. But I'm stuck.
I think he's regretting that now since he can't wear armor. But
yeah.
You referred to Hayden Blackman a couple of times already. What was exactly his implication in Runes?
Well, again, he was one of the three that was involved in the approval process, and he was pleased enough with the first idea that I had for the novel that he sort of ran with it as well, and put in a couple of suggestions on elements to include in the book, and then that way he could then go and take what I was writing and then later on include it in the game. One of the things that our heroes are trying to retrieve will become, again, like I mentioned before, part of the game. It'll become some of the quests that players can take.
Okay, players will be able to do the same mission that Dusk and Finn did?
Well, they'll be able to approach either one of them to sort of continue that mission.
Okay.
At least that's at the last I heard that's what they were working on. I know Hayden on the Star Wars site put an introduction into the book, and he actually mentioned the fact that the developers are working on including all of these things now. And this is what went into was involved in our discussions at the very beginning of the planning process for the novel, is certain things that we could use that the few dangling threads at the end of the novel could then be incorporated into the game.
Yeah. Okay.
And there were certain elements that he wanted to see included, and for example, even at the player event that we included, at that point in the game, people could not mount animals yet. When we were talking about it, but he let me know that this was coming. He let me know about the vehicles that were coming. We wanted to include the mount because that patch was supposed to hit right around Christmas time or a little bit before. So there were smaller things like that he said, put this in here too because it will happen, or it's about to happen, or it just happened. But it was mostly minor suggestions along the way.
Yeah, great.
And he had a couple of favorites. I think Nim is one of his more favorite.
Yeah, it's a great
creations in the game, and so that's why we had to have a quick trip to Loke.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty helpful.
Oh, very much so. I mean, he was available at any time for questions that I had, and especially considering my ability within the game at that point to maneuver around was pretty limited. He was always sending screenshots and different things to me as I needed them, so he was very available.
I could almost see it happen, you calling him at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'm stuck in this elevator. Can you come and get me out, please?
Or at least take a picture of what I'm trying to look at and send it to me.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. He was a big help.
Okay.
Very nice man.
The way that the story ended invites the possibility of a sequel. Can we expect Del Rey to do a follow-up book or even a Star Wars Galaxies series?
To be very honest, I think it's going to depend on sales and how well it's received. I think that Del Rey is thinking about it, as is LucasArts. I don't know for sure how far down the road they are in planning the next stage. Like I said, I really do believe they're watching to see how this does.
Okay.
How it's received.
Because it's a great idea to have an interactivity between the book and the game.
I think they think so. I certainly do. I wouldn't mind doing another one, continuing the characters, or starting on another thread.
Okay.
There's
Well,
a lot of possibilities within the game.
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to ask a question to the producer. The X-Wing series, Michael A. Stackpole.
Yeah.
How many books did he do?
5,
5 or 6?
Yeah. 6.
Okay. Would it be something that would interest you to do 5 or 6 more books, for the Star Wars Galaxy series?
Oh, I wouldn't mind at all. It was a mad dash, and it was crazy, and it was fun and exciting, and all of those things, and I wouldn't mind continuing it actually at all.
But you probably would have more time.
I would certainly hope so. I'm a little concerned when I saw that Star Wars Insider with the title, The Fastest Pen in the Galaxy. I don't know if I want to be remembered that way. I actually like normal deadlines, too. Because only 1 or 2 of the books I've had have actually had some sort of reasonable deadlines. The other ones have been, geez, we're in a crunch, can you do it? And foolish me goes, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, really.
We got a question from a fan of yours, Danny here.
Oh.
Do you think that the synopsis on the back of the book was giving away the surprise and made the book a bit more predictable?
To some it might have been. I didn't have a part in writing that, so I can't say, well, yeah, that's my doing, and I meant for this to happen or for that not to happen. There's, I think in a lot of books, you do get a sense early on of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
About the only input I got from Del Rey on part of the plot was simply that they wanted to make sure that anyone who read the book didn't feel cheated at the end, and it didn't come as too much of a surprise.
Okay.
So they may have put that in just to also make sure that some people might have seen what was coming.
But I gave a good review anyway, so.
They mentioned on the Star Wars official website that there will be a crossover from the book to the game. I suppose that Duske Misflyer and Finn Darktrin, sorry about that, will be appearing in the game.
That is the idea, that they'll become sort of static NPCs like Leia and Mara Jade and Han Solo and the others that are in the game. So something that players can interact with in terms of getting missions or quests or things from them.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you think that the players could expect that you could tell us?
Well, I think, because I do check the boards every once in a while, and I think the players are pretty up to date as far as knowing what's down the road as much as I do. I think everybody's looking forward to the space expansion, which is supposed to come this summer in the game, which will allow players to have their own ships, which will cut down. I think the one thing that I noticed with the bit I do play is that everybody complains when they're waiting at the starport. They're waiting for the bus, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to being able to fly themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Did writing in runes change you in any way? Because when we take a look at your bibliography, you were more of a fantasy writer. Did going into sci-fi made you realize new things?
Well, to be honest, that was always the genre as a child that I enjoyed reading or watching more than anything else. So for me, it definitely was different to actually be a part of it for a change on the inside.
It maybe changed your discipline in coming out with a script so fast.
That even surprised me, that I could do that.
Okay.
In the end, when you think about it, to turn over a whole book in about a month. I think it made me, it part of it was instrumental in me changing the direction that my career is taking, and I'm definitely expanding my horizons in terms of different genres that I'll probably be writing in after this point.
Okay, so it still was kind of a milestone for your career.
Yes, it was, actually.
There you go. If you would have another chance to work on the Star Wars universe, something else than Star Wars Galaxies, what stories would you like to tell?
If I stayed within the Star Wars The Galaxy game?
Yeah. Well, no, the Star Wars universe itself.
Well, I guess if I could, again, for me, always the characters that have been the most interesting to me have been, the Luke, Leia, Han, and those characters. To be able to write a story that involved them more fully than the little bit I was able to squeak in here and there in the Ruins would, for me, pretty much be a dream come true.
Yeah.
Well, we'll forward the message to Del Rey. Any comments on the prequel movies up to now, and what's your expectations for Episode 3?
You know, out of all of them, Episode 3 is the one I'm really looking forward to. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm really impressed with George Lucas because I still hold to my opinion that to do these movies is definitely the most challenging because we know what's going to happen. We don't know all the fine details, but we know the path Anakin's going to choose. We know Obi-Wan's eventual fate. And for him to be able to put these movies out and still make them exciting to us, I think is very impressive.
Yeah.
Because we do know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think I am looking for that sort of climactic battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Okay. We actually received some question from a fan.
Okay.
I'm just going to have the producer take a quick look at it.
This one we told.
This one we asked. She talked about that. That one, okay. If you ever got the question is from Christopher Walker, and he'd like to know, if you got a chance, would you develop your Imperial Inquisitor character further on in other stories? He's always been intrigued.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah?
I had a lot of fun with the little bit that I did write about him, and to be very honest, I'm very intrigued with the Imperial side of the universe, and would like to do more with him. I definitely had some ideas of things I would like to do further with him down the road. And again, that all depends on if that opportunity arises, but I definitely would.
Okay. I'll also take the opportunity to extend an invitation from him. If you ever go back to to some servers, try to go on Starsider server and meet Jans Walker, and he's inviting you for a little hunting game party.
That's very nice of him.
There you go.
As long as I'm not the prey.
Yeah.
I think he was meaning dewbacks and stuff like that. Okay. Today our main subject on the show is women in Star Wars fandom. And sadly you're a woman, so you kind of fall into the show's topic. So you're going to have to answer some more questions.
Okay.
How would you explain the growing popularity of female character in the Star Wars universe?
How would I explain it? Well, but to be honest, again, going back to when I first got into this, and I've been a sort of a gamer, comic book reader since I was very young, and as a female, that's always been I've sort of been the odd person out because of it. That's one of the things that, and maybe the only thing that really bothered me about the first couple of movies in Star Wars. If you notice that there are no female characters. There's Leia, there's Aunt Beru, and
that's it.
The general in the Return of the Jedi, but there's really no other strong female characters, even some secondary players.
Oh yeah, because Luke is so masculine.
But if you do notice, it is lacking in there,
yeah.
And it may just be that over time that issue is being addressed because we're out here too. I sort of wonder if part of that is because, like I mentioned, a lot of these genres, they seem to appeal to a majority of males more so than females. And even in the fantasy writing too, I noticed it's a lot more rare in a fantasy line that you come across a character where the lead is a woman. I think Alien was one of the first movies that really put a female in science fiction in a commanding role with Ripley. I think those movies were wonderful, and it was about time that a woman got to be seen as something more than just a damsel in distress, or as fodder for a hockey mask axe-wielding murderer, that we're out there too. And again, the expanded universe, I think it's changing, with characters like Mara Jade, introducing those into their Han's children, his daughter, things like that, realize that we girls are out here too.
Okay. How does your husband react to your passion for Star Wars? Actually, is he a fan himself? You told us that you hooked him onto the Star Wars Galaxies game. How does he like watching the movies with you?
You know, that's still not something that really grabbed him. And after he was about a month into the game, he looked at me and said, "Is Darth Vader a good guy or a bad guy?" And I almost hit him on the head with it. He doesn't follow that one as much. He's always been more interested in science fiction and fantasy that involves time travel.
Okay.
That's been one of his biggest interests. I think this is growing on him. And now the fact that the Star Wars music isn't playing incessantly, the movies aren't on the TV all the time, and the books aren't spread all over the house, he might actually sit down and watch some of those with me. But up until, like I said, a few months ago, it was all work, and he was avoiding it with a passion.
I see.
Yeah, I was a bit maniacal about it.
Well, I'm sure you can actually turn him a little bit onto that.
I think so. Like I said, now that it's not work, and now that it's fun, I think he might be interested in a few of them again.
Okay.
And he did see them all originally when they were the older ones when they were in the theater a long time ago. Not nearly as many times as I did. That's probably a good thing.
A long time ago in a little town far, far away.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to ask you right now what you're doing. If you're working on a new book project, if you got something to promote that you'd like to get out there, people to go buy some books. I'm going to actually ask you a question first before you do that. Which book do you actually consider to be the first book someone should read from you?
Well, the books that I have out now, and you've actually listed most of my work. The things I'm doing for Forgotten Realms, several of those books were part of a series, and those are best to read in order, starting with Halls of Stormweather and then going to Sands of the Soul, and then somewhat of a conclusion in Crimson Gold, although that character's journeys are far from over. And I will have a new book coming out through Wizards of the Coast on the Forgotten Realms novel. It should be out next spring.
Which is titled?
Which is titled Queen of the Depths, which is actually set underwater.
Oh.
A nice mix of...
Inspired by your real life again, or...?
Well, it worked out well. It's one of the things that, and Crimson Gold is a part of it, one of the things that Wizards of the Coast is doing now is in the Forgotten Realms line, they have several series that are based on character classes. Crimson Gold is actually part of the Rogues series. And one of the next series that's starting up is the Priest series, and they actually wanted to do one on a priest of Umberlee, one of the underwater goddesses of the Forgotten Realms, and actually they came to me for it because several of them know of my alter ego and my exploits underwater. So they thought that I might be a good choice in that. I'm very excited about that. In much the way I liked doing ruins and dealing with the animals, I'm going to enjoy writing about a place that I do spend a lot of my time.
Yeah.
Underwater.
So basically, if we go back to a kind of book you'd like to write in the Star Wars Galaxies universe, actually, I'm probably sure at some point the characters would end up on Mount Calamari.
You know, probably a very good chance of that. In fact, actually, I've got one of the folks I do play with every once in a while. He's a Mon Calamari, his character, and he's so desperate for them to include that planet into the game. I think that'd be a neat challenge, and I'm sort of thinking that's one of the places they haven't gone yet. Is they haven't explored a lot of the underwater aspects of some of the places. So I'm kind of hoping for that too.
Maybe after the space expansion.
Could be, and they have to go somewhere else. And if we go in outer space, that only leaves inner space left, and they're, with some of the caves and dungeons, they're already covering underground a little bit. Mm-hmm. It'd be kind of nice if they explored some of the water.
Well, there you go. Well, now we're done. We actually sent you, Danny should have sent you a little promo line that we have all our guests who come on the show do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're gonna have to ask you to do it now, and right after that, we'll be going to a really short musical break, which now will be Cyndi Lauper and Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Yes.
Very appropriate.
And we'll be right back
Thank you.
after that on Star Wars on Direct. So
But stay on the phone
stay on
after
the phone
that.
with us.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is Veronica Whitney-Robinson, the author of the Star Wars Galaxy novel, The Ruins of Dantooine, and you are listening to Star Wars on Direct.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back here on Star Wars on Direct, the voice of Star Wars fandom, with the main subject, the woman of the Star Wars fandom.